Most AI editing content falls under one of two camps, either fear-mongering, telling you the world is ending, or it's just view whoring, where people are just making viral content for the sake of it. I want to actually help you. My name's Sayeef Ahmed, I've edited for some of the largest YouTubers in the world, and I've coached hundreds of editors to help them go full-time and scale. And this is how we're actually using AI in our day-to-day editing. First, we need to understand that AI, at first principles, cannot create something new. If you do a bit of research into how it all works, it takes a ton of previous data, like inputs, and it just calculates averages to figure out what it should create next. For example, if you tell it to create an animation, it's going to look at its training data for what an animation looks like and give you something generic based off of that. And this is where the whole AI slop thing comes about. The reason AI video generally looks like slop is because if you don't prompt it right, it's just going to give you an amalgamation, a mix of basically everything that it's ever been trained on. But you can have it be useful within video editing if you know how to use it the right way. Let's start with the example of creating an animation. If you want to automate animation, instead of just telling AI, create me a good animation, we need to actually define what those terms mean. Because AI doesn't know what good looks like. AI doesn't know what animation is or looks like. We have to actually define those things. And here's how we do that. We take the big term, animation, and we need to ask ourselves, what does this task actually consist of? Because while for humans it's easy, we can just say, go animate this thing. Really what that means is we do a certain amount of tasks in a certain order, and that we call the animation process. Because to animate a video, there's actually all these little tasks. First of all, you need to watch the video, the part that you're actually animating. Then you need to ideate the animation, the visual, so what the design is going to look like. Then you need to go get the assets and put them on your screen. So in Premiere Pro or After Effects, you actually compose it all. Once you get the composition, you now need to add some depth effects, some textures, etc. So effects to actually make it look better. Then you need to think about how you're going to animate it, so how you're going to add the movements. Then you need to add the movements. And then once you've done the animation, you're going to look at it and pretty much ask yourself, like, does this look good or not? So you do the checks. Then you make any changes necessary. So as a human, we say animating, but what we really mean is these 6, 7, 8, 9 steps in order which we bundle up and call animating. So when we're teaching an AI, we're going to need to do the exact same thing. We're going to tell it what the actual human process for animating a video is, because that way we can actually control how it's doing each step. So if we don't like the output, we can find out, like, why is the output going wrong? It's because it's messing up in one of these steps. So let's talk about actually like the tech stack that we're using today. Of course, AI changes so fast that by the time you're watching this, the actual tools won't matter as much because they're going to be different. It's more the principles that matter, and this is how you're going to keep up. Right now, I'm using Claude Code. I pay for the maximum subscription. I think it's like $200 a month, purely because it saves me so much time and so much energy and makes me so much more money than $200 a month. In my opinion, it's worth it. I think they have like a $20 a month plan. I would highly recommend it. I'm not affiliated. I make no money from you getting it or not. This is just what I'm using at the moment. I use Claude Code, and there's basically like tools that Claude Code can use. One of them is, for example, hyperframes. Another one is vMotion. Another one is FFmpeg. These are all tools that an AI can call in order for it to complete a certain task. So what you do is you basically tell Claude Code that, hey, I'm trying to do this process. I'm trying to build a workflow where you can help me create animations from scratch. Here's what it looks like for me to create an animation. First, we need to actually look at the source footage. We need to transcribe it. We need to get ideas based off of that. And we go through all the steps until we actually have an animation. Because what you can then do is have a different tool that the AI calls for each step. For example, for actually watching the video, how does an AI know what animation is going to make sense here? Well, it has to take in the footage. How does it do that? We can use FFmpeg, which is essentially like a code-based way of editing a video, like trimming. It can size things up. It's basic, but you can do it through code, which AI works very well with code. You don't actually need to know any code. For example, I don't even know how to do the whole like hello world thing. I know nothing to do with code, but I know that FFmpeg uses code to edit. So that's going to be used to basically trim the section that we need. Then I use OpenAI Whisper. There's a paid version which is using API, but if you run it locally, it's actually free. So I use that. That basically transcribes it, and now we have a section of a video with text that's super accurate. Then we need to now ideate an animation for this. That's when we pull that transcript and those images into an LLM like Claude, and we basically ask it like, hey, based on this line, based on this, and based on like this style guide that we've created, type up like the description for an animation. So it'll talk about the colors, it'll talk about where the things are positioned, etc. Then we take that and we put it into something that can actually create a design. By default, Claude, as of now, cannot create images and it cannot create essentially like scenes. But it can call a different tool to create that. That's where things like Vmotion, which you may have heard of, you may not have. Hyperframes is another thing that's similar to Vmotion, in my opinion, it's better right now. But essentially, we put that output that the LLM gave, the large language model, Claude, ChatGPT, whatever, it gave that description of an animation, we feed that into Claude again, and we tell it use hyperframes to create this animation. Then, once we've gotten that, and that'll usually take care of the depth effects, the textures, the composition, the assets, all of that good stuff. Once we've gotten that, that's when we actually feed it back into itself and we get it to check its own work. How are we going to do that? We use FFmpeg to actually take screenshots of the video it's created, and then basically like this is how I personally am doing it. I give it the training within my own coaching program. So like I take my own course, I turn it into training because that's what I literally teach editors to make better scenes. I just give it to AI to know what a good scene looks like. And then I tell it, based on this training and these principles, give feedback on this edit. And then we take that output, we feed it back into the AI saying like, hey, good stuff. Here's the things to change and here's the things to keep the same. And then we create another output. And it does this until it has at least a 95% confidence that this is a good scene. And now we've got an animated scene. So like, can you see how the whole broad term of animating, we first break it down into its micro workflow, like little steps, and we keep breaking it down until we've got the core actions. I mean, once we have the core actions or core tasks, that's when we can tell an AI, like, here's the things you need to do in order, and it can help you, and you can literally ask it, like, what tools do you recommend for each one of these stages? Now, animating videos is the sexy thing that everyone talks about. That's why I wanted to cover it, because it is useful. But truthfully, the biggest benefit that I found with AI with video editing is just the unsexy tasks. For example, subtitling. Oh my god, it has changed the entire way I subtitle full videos. Before, I used to do it manually, or I would use Premiere Pro's automatic subtitle generator. If you've ever used it, you know how annoying it is. There's capital letters randomly, there's like full stops and commas out of nowhere, there's half the words it'll get wrong. Sometimes it's not even like the words are wrong and it makes sense, it just like the sentence doesn't make sense. Like, why would you think it even means that? Why would you think that's what it said? So it's just a pain in the ass, and to fix it you've got to like manually go in. I use AI now to essentially take the subtitles that's automatically being generated, we download it as an SRT file, like a subtitle file, and then I ask it like, hey, here's what the video is about, fix it within the context of this video. For example, if I'm recording this, I might say a line, let's say I'm recording this. The normal Premiere Pro subtitler might have picked it up as, let's say I'm recording crickets, because there's crickets around. Imagine it picked it up as that. An LLM, like an AI, would pick up like, wait, crickets doesn't make sense within the context of this video. He probably meant something else. What's the most likely word? Oh, let's plug that in instead. And because AI, like we spoke about before, it's literally a prediction machine of what word comes next and what like data comes next. It is so good at predicting what words should have been there. So it cleans it all up. Then I just get it to follow the best practices within my program. I'm going to tell you some of them because it's relevant for this. But with subtitling, there's 3 core rules that you have to follow when you're doing subtitling. Number 1, it has to be accurate, which we talked about before. The AI is going to clean it up. Second of all, we want it to follow the natural cut points. For example, let's say we're saying, right now I'm using my iPhone camera to record this video. That's a long line that, let's say we're cutting every 3 to 4 words. We want to make sure that we're cutting it at the most natural points. So, for example, I completely forgot the sentence that I used, so we're going to use a different one. I have my microphone on a tripod. I have my tripod. So I have my microphone on a tripod, rather than like I have my mic on a tripod. Like, you got to break it up so that, let's say there's a noun phrase, you don't actually split in the middle of it. For example, a microphone should never be split between two subtitle lines, where it says like a, like it ends on a, and then the next line where it switches to the next set of subtitles says microphone. Noun pairs should be paired up. There's all these other little rules, like I teach AI now, here's all the rules, here's a ton of examples, go do it for me. Before, it used to be such a pain in the ass to do it manually. And then the third rule, which is we want to make sure that we have consistent casing. For example, let's say you've got lowercase, uppercase, and then randomly there's like another capital letter at the beginning of a line for some reason. Like, you want to get rid of those. So it doesn't matter if you do it all in lowercase. It doesn't matter if you do it all in uppercase. What matters is you have a consistent way of capitalizing. Maybe you have all lowercase and only the I's are capitalized. But what matters is it is consistent. And AI is so good at doing this. So what I do is get an automatically generated transcript, feed it into an AI that's been trained on this process that I already would have done manually, and then now it can do what I would have been able to do manually, but in an automatic way. The reason I mentioned all of this is because if I didn't have my proven process already, the AI wouldn't be able to do it, because when it thinks subtitles, it's trained on like so much random data that I have no control over, so it's going to get it wrong. Another example of the way I'm using AI within actual video editing is organizing footage / finding clips. I used to have to manually look through footage in order to find best moments or a moment that I have specifically in my mind. Now, instead, what I do is I take any video or multiple videos if there's lots of clips for a video, and I actually feed it through a tool called OpenAI Whisper. This is basically a tool that just transcribes any video that you throw at it. So I feed in the video, I tell it, yo, transcribe this, make sure you give all the timestamps for every word. And it can tell you where a word starts and ends. Then whenever I need a section in a video, I can literally feed that transcript into any AI and say, hey, there was a section about this thing, when did that happen? And the best part about using AI to search through a video, rather than just searching using Command F or whatever, is because it will search not only exact phrasing, but it will search for semantics. Let me explain what I mean. Let's say there's a video about a guy going to a park and you want to find a part where he's cycling over there. If you just search cycling, in a normal transcript, you probably wouldn't find a section where he's cycling. I doubt he's going to say, I am now cycling to the park. He's probably not going to say that. But if you ask an AI that, it will be able to infer it. So it might realize, like, wait, this is the point where he's talking about leaving the house, and at this timestamp he was at the park, so it's likely he was cycling between there to get there. Oh, and it'll tell you, hey, it's most likely at this stage. You can go double check it, and you realize it's there. Awesome. Especially as you're working on larger and larger videos, or videos with multiple POVs, multiple pieces of footage, multiple cameras. It's a mess. So having this as part of your ingest process, where before you actually start working on it, similar to how you would create proxies, you literally create these transcript files for AI to search. I found it so useful to be able to just edit videos a lot quicker. So those are just some of the examples of how I'm using AI within my video editing process. The main point I wanted to get across in this video is AI can only do what you already know how to do, and to get the output that you actually want, take the main task that you're trying to get it to do and break it down into micro workflows. Break it down into tiny little tasks that it needs to do. Tell AI, I want you to do this big task. Here's how you do it step by step. Help me automate this, or help me build a tool stack for this. And then now you can just give it one thing. It'll know what steps to take the footage or whatever thing through, and the output will actually be how you want. So that's how I'm currently using AI as a video editor. Things will change, but as long as you've got these principles, you'll be good. But in order to learn the principles, you can go watch this video here. I'll walk you through how I actually create these amazing scenes, and funnily enough, you can literally feed that video into AI and it'll create better scenes as well. So go watch that video here.